Yeah, for the past few years, the sons and daughters have asked one of their own who happened to be a child survivor of the attack on Pearl Harbor, meaning they were on the island of Oahu on December 7th, 1941. And sons and daughters, I challenge you to find a younger child survivor than the one that we're about to listen to. Emphasis, younger. Without saying more, I'd like to introduce the daughter of Pearl Harbor survivor, Jerome Sawyer, and she is also a member of Chapter 5. Child survivor, Sherron Sandrini.
Thank you. As Wayne said, thank you, Wayne, for that introduction. I don't look so young, do I? My father was a fighter pilot in the Army Air Corps, and he was an ace. He was a highly decorated war hero, and my dad personally got credit for killing 2,000 Japanese. But on the morning of, that wasn't in Pearl Harbor, of course, that was up until 1943 during the war. But on the morning of December 7th, he was playing golf, and he had one more person to beat to become the champion of the Hawaiian Islands. Meanwhile, my mother and I were in the hospital. I was 6 days old. We were in the Schofield Hospital, located near the center of Oahu. At that time, a lot of people haven't heard of Schofield, but at that time it was the largest military base in the United States. Like many families, we didn't talk about the war when I was growing up. But fortunately, my mom and her two sisters saved everything. They were products of the Depression, so that might explain that. But after they passed away, I was tasked with cleaning out all their junk. And I saved all the Pearl Harbor memorabilia. I have letters, lots of telegrams, postcards, magazine articles, and newspaper clippings. And I put all of them in scrapbooks, and they're about that high now. On December 7th, we were in the maternity ward. Mom was in bed looking out the window. At first, she thought it was my dad flying to tip his wings and celebrate my birth. But shortly after that, she saw two Japanese planes strafe the hospital just 30 feet from our room. Nearby, a nurse just missed getting killed. The doors and the windows shook from the explosions, and the sky was filled with black smoke from the airplanes burning at Wheeler Field, a short mile away. That's where we lived. Our quarters were close to the flight line, and they were lined up like sitting ducks. You might know or have read that only 4 airplanes were able to survive the attack. Soon the ambulances arrived with the injured and dying, and the doctors and nurses were immediately put to work for caring for the wounded. It was chaos in the hospital. A nurse came to our room, and my mother told me that she said, "Here are 6 diapers. If they're wet, hang them on the bedpost. If they're dirty, throw them under the bed and roll them in a ball, throw them under the bed." She said, "We need the rest of the diapers and the linens for bandages for the wounded. No more clean bed linens. Now you get into your street clothes and get into bed." All 9 operating rooms were busy that morning. Later in the day, the fathers started arriving one by one, and my mom recalled, with this visit from my husband, the horror of war faced me with these never forgotten words. "Honey, take care of yourself and the baby. I don't know if I can come back, I don't know if I'll ever come back. She also wrote that the following 2 days and nights were all jumbled. One thing I know, she said, while laying flat on our backs, we folded hundreds of bandages. In the blackest of blackouts, she could change a diaper in no time. They ate, they slept, they worried. The mothers were fitted with gas masks. The babies had none, of course. My mom said in one article, quote, "There are no words to tell you how I felt when the gas raid alarm sounded. Should I put it on? Should I put it on and save myself or my husband? Or should I take it off and watch my baby die?" Lucky for us, it was a false alarm. On December 9th, the women, the children, and the other patients that could be ambulatory were moved from the hospital to make room for the more war casualties coming in. Mom and I were sent to the interior to live with complete strangers. The Army told my mom to return during the daylight hours for short periods of time to pack up all our household goods and our belongings, and we should be prepared to leave Hawaii on 30 minutes' notice. When I was just 28 days old, we actually received 5 minutes' notice. Our transocean baggage consisted of a large suitcase with my baby things in it, an overnight bag for my mom containing one dress and her personal items, and a big pillowcase jammed full of canned milk, sterilizer, glass bottles, and still wet laundry. My mom described herself as a tired, haggard-looking mother as she prepared to leave our home at Wheeler Field without even getting to tell my dad goodbye. We were put on a chartered bus, which took us to our ship, probably the Lurline or the Matsonia. To our happy surprise, my father was there, waiting to bid us aloha. After 5 long hours of sitting on a hot bus, we were permitted to board. That night, under cover of blackout, we set sail for an unknown port. When daylight arrived, the evacuees realized that our ship had joined a large military convoy. It was composed of transport, destroyers, and cruisers. Overhead, the Army bombers kept their eagle eye on us, and the Navy's planes took over when the land planes could no longer keep the watch. 8 days aboard the ship were filled with fire drills and abandoned ship drills. Imagine my mother carrying me around all of this, wearing a heavy life belt. Everybody wore life belts that indicated dangerous waters. The entire convoy was in blackout from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day. Then, on the evening of January 7th, the bright lights of San Francisco showed through the fog, and the Golden Gate welcomed us. We came down the gangplank, and we were greeted by MPs, Army officials, the Red Cross, and newspaper reporters. One photographer from the San Francisco Examiner snapped our photo, and the next morning I became famous. I was the air raid baby. This photo of air raid baby and Army mother was sent to my dad in Hawaii and to other newspapers across the country. Mom had no communication with my father then, no cell phones. I was sick with starvation diarrhea. We had little money and no place to live. My mom told me the Red Cross saved us, and I've always loved and respected the Red Cross for this. They gave us money and a train ticket to Chicago so we could move in with my aunt. In closing, I want you to know what my mom's part in the war was. She joined the Military Order of the Guards in Chicago, which was a uniformed horse-mounted patrol, and they wore khaki uniforms. She was also invited to give talks about her Pearl Harbor experience to many clubs and civic organizations. Actually, my mom was a very beautiful woman, and the newspapers loved putting her picture holding me in the news. So thank you for inviting me today and listening to this old air raid baby.
Sherron, I think we owe your mother an applause too. That was a terrific story, Sherron, that only you could have presented to us because of the circumstances. You suffered the attack, and you had to leave, and your family was broken up, and thank goodness your mother kept this much junk. Yes. Thank you so much, Sherron.